Joined right now by Home Affairs commentator Danny Shaw. He's a former advisor to Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, before she was in office, of course, and he joins us right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us next. Well, look, lots to talk about at home. It kind of relates to the migrant issue, which we've been talking about an awful lot lately, as you well know. And this is about the sort of two-tier claims from police when they decide to give us or not give us information about a suspect's identity, whether they've been arrested or whether they've been charged. And we have this all over Cabana, post Southport, and this void of information which then gets filled sometimes by bad actors online, but also the issue of a reform councillor in Warwickshire accusing the police of basically deliberately withholding information about two suspects who've been charged in relation to the alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl, and the fact that they have asylum seeker status, and that information was withheld until he put it into the public domain. Tell us, what is going on here, and what are the rules?
Well, there are two main rules, Julia. The first is the contempt of court rules, which you will obviously be aware of, which you have to be very careful about the information that you release after a suspect is arrested, actually, but particularly after they're charged, so as not to prejudice any future proceedings and a trial. That's the first thing. Releasing the nationality or ethnicity of a suspect won't really infringe the contempt of court rules, I should say. The second thing is police guidance about the information that they release. And the current guidance when someone is arrested suggests that police should reveal that person's age and rough location where they're from. When they're charged, then their name, their date of birth, and where they live can be released. There's nothing to stop police revealing someone's nationality or ethnicity, and in some cases they do reveal nationality, particularly in terrorism cases. That's very common practice for them to do that, to say whether they're British or whether they're from abroad.
But you could argue, why is it relevant?
Exactly. I mean, I think the question that the police would say is that this isn't relevant information to the alleged offence and to the proceedings.
But then neither is the age, and yet we get to know someone's age.
Well, exactly. I suppose that there's a point at which you want to try and give a rough profile of someone, and also if someone's got a common name, then revealing their age and their location will help pin them down.
John Smith of the High Street, 52, as opposed to John Smith of the Long Street. But there's been quite a lot of talk about this two-tier that when, for instance, there are the allegations, obviously still sub judice, it hasn't come to court yet, of a man whose car basically hit a lot of people in Liverpool. Information came out during a parade. Information came out very, very quickly that this was a white British man who was born locally, and yet then you say, well, hold on a minute, so why don't we get the same information about someone if they're not white or if they're not born in Britain? And the it's actually means something like his 18-year-old or something, councillor in Nuneaton in Warwickshire, pointing out that everyone locally kind of knew that the two men who had been arrested in relation to an alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl were asylum seekers living in an asylum hotel, but that information wasn't put out by the police. And again, that's where you kind of create that big void, don't you? But we know there's been two issues. So one is we've got Andy Cooke. He's His Majesty's Chief Inspector of a Constabulary, and he says basically, and also David Gauke, the former Justice Secretary, have spoken in support of police being more transparent. But there's concerns that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, your old boss, basically says, look, we're not going to do this on an ad hoc basis. We don't want to pressure the police on this. We've got a review into this, and we're going to wait until they decide what information should be given out and in what circumstances. But that's not going to report back till the autumn, and the pressure is kind of brewing in a long, hot summer for that information to be given out sooner.
Well, I mean, I agree. The sooner we get this cleared up and we get some consistency, the better. My view is that in all cases where police are naming someone who's been charged, they should say their nationality, so that there's no allegations of two-tier justice, there's no allegations of a cover-up or a conspiracy. That's the position we need to get to. I think the difficulty is you've got 43 police forces in England and Wales, plus Police Scotland, Police Service of Northern Ireland, British Transport Police, etc. there needs to be consistency. So to get all of those bodies on board and to get approved guidance will take a bit of time. That's probably the delay, but I understand Andy Cooke's frustration about that, and I agree. We've got to get it sorted out. The autumn is only next month.
There is that, isn't there? There is that. I mean, but it's interesting. I think knowing someone's nationality is very relevant. I'm not entirely sure why ethnicity should be. I mean, by that I think we're thinking of race, but I suppose ethnicity is someone, they could be white British or white Polish, I don't know. But immigration status, would that be relevant? Look, as much as I would like to know every bit of information I can on these stories, because I think it is relevant when, families are saying we don't want asylum hotels in our, wherever we live, and we're aware of allegations, whether proven in court yet or not, but allegations of girls being sexually assaulted or raped and women being harassed. Any other criminality that's been alleged. We want people to be talking openly about it and not waiting 2 years for a court case to come to fruition. But in terms of having had legal training as a journalist, would that be relevant information in most cases?
Well, there's nothing to stop that information from being revealed, even though it may not be relevant. But there is such a debate and such concern about immigration at the moment, and allegations that sex offenders are more likely to be foreign nationals and so on.
I think the stats prove that.
Etc. I'm not sure that they do prove that, but that's another. Perhaps that's another
per
debate.
capita for Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, seems very clear about this. Certainly in London.
I think you have to be careful about those statistics and where they're from and what they include, and they also underestimate the population of foreign nationals in London. Therefore, the proportion is probably likely to be lower than you realise, because actually you're drawing from a bigger pool. But that's a separate debate. Look, I think we've got to get to a position whereby this is routine. It becomes so routine that it's not so talked about, and it doesn't become part of allegations of a cover-up or a conspiracy.
Well, that's interesting. You say it's routine, but the reason why a lot of people suspect that we don't know, for instance, the immigration status or the nationality of people committing certain ranges of crimes is not routinely given out, and that data has not been kept. We're often told, the grooming gangs, this percentage were of, say, Pakistani origin, but or joint or heritage, but we just don't know about another 30%. It's like, yeah, you did know about another 30%. You join the local library, they ask for your ethnicity. They absolutely know, the police and the authorities, whether someone is a British or a foreign national and what colour skin they are and what country they're from. They do know all that stuff, but they don't give that information out because they think that we'll all go and riot because we won't like the answers we get. That's why.
Political correctness absolutely came into it, particularly with the grooming gangs, and there has been a concern. I think Warwickshire is probably one of them in that particular case that you talked about, where the police probably thought, well, why is this relevant? And if we release this information, there may be unrest, there may be a disturbance and so on. But we've got to get to a position where we can't hide that
needs to be
anymore.
It needs to be normalised and routine and again consistent. Danny Shaw, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Claire Pearsall, former Home Office advisor. Do we have a right to know these things? Is it right that we do know?
You know what, I think it is. I think that we need a consistent approach to it. So I think the public do have a right to know if somebody is in their community, who they are, what age range you're looking at, and whether they are here legally or not. I actually do think that's important.
If you don't keep that information, there's a lot of targeted policing. We often hear about stop and search aimed at if one particular group of young men or women are committing certain knife crimes or drug crimes, they're the people who are going to be targeted. I always love the fact that I'm being searched for a bottle of water or a bomb. Big issue with middle-aged women travelling for a weekend in Seville, bombing planes. I mean, feel free to waste my time targeting me. But the reality is police do target people because they're more likely to be committing crimes. Am I wary walking past a bunch of pensioners on the corner of the street? No, I'm not. Am I wary walking past a bunch of hooded teenagers, male, female, of any ethnicity? Exactly. Yes, I am. Yeah. We know what we're talking about. And you can't target people if you don't keep the correct figures.
Correct.
Another reason why you shouldn't claim that a crime committed by a man is a crime committed by a woman just because he says he's a woman and he's put a wig on and a pair of fake boobs. I mean, the same reason. You need to know who is committing crimes to try and prevent those crimes. And if it is asylum seekers, if it is foreign nationals, maybe we should have a debate about that.
Precisely.
That would be a good idea.
If you have the information, you can deal with it.
If the information isn't uncomfortable, they wouldn't want us to know, would they? But there we are. They'd be happy for us to know.